And now, with all the news for Western Washington, Gene Enerson and Barry Judge, meteorologist Jeff Renner, and Tony Ventrella Sports. This is King 5 News at 5.
Two brothers have the book thrown at them after confessing they intentionally set almost 24 fires. Good evening. Our top story tonight, 2 of 3 arson suspects arrested this week in Seattle are charged with a total of 13 counts of arson. Tonight, there's surprising information about the motives behind the crimes. And while one arson investigation is winding down, another continues in full force. We give you a live report from Snohomish County. And we'll tell you about another suspicious fire set overnight in Bremerton.
Our top story begins in Seattle tonight, where 2 of 3 suspects in a string of South Seattle fires are now charged with multiple counts of first-degree arson.
Well, this comes just one day after a King County judge handed down hefty bails to the twins who have already confessed to the crime spree. King 5's Dan Lothian has been following the story and joins us now live from the King County Courthouse with the latest details. Dan?
Well, Gene, Barry, we have just received the court documents from officials, and what we are told is that one of the suspects is being charged with 10 counts of both first and second-degree arson. The other suspect with just 3 counts. The 2 brothers are Stephen and Chad Griffiths. Now, both are currently in the King County Jail at this hour, one being held on $450,000 bond, the other on $250,000 bond. The other, a juvenile, is currently in the Youth Services Center. This is just the latest development in a case of 3 arson suspects and a very long arson spree. This is what the 3 suspects reportedly tell authorities they are responsible for. $600,000 damage to the Mount Baker Community Center last March, $250,000 damage to this Capitol Hill house. In all, they are fessing up to almost 24 arsons in South Seattle. Why did they do it?
It was simply for some kind of vicarious thrill, nothing better to do. They derive some kind of kicks from this type of behavior.
Now, 2 of the suspects, 20-year-old twin brothers, Chad and Steve Griffiths, are being charged for the crimes. After a 5-week fire and police investigation, authorities arrested the twins on Monday, hours after a 16-year-old runaway was picked up at this apartment. He first confessed to the arsons, then implicated the brothers. The juvenile is expected to be charged on Thursday. These latest charges against the newest arson suspects come weeks after similar ones were leveled against 2 other men. 30-year-old William Miles remains behind bars charged with first-degree arson. He confessed to this carport boat fire at a North Seattle apartment complex. And in Snohomish County, Richard Coe is held on $100,000 bond charged with second-degree arson. He allegedly torched the Living Waters Christian Church in Linwood. He'll soon be on his way to Western State for 15 days of mental evaluation. Fire officials say these developments add focus to the overall arson investigation and boost the morale of investigators.
I think it's very encouraging for them to see that after all this work, it pays off and they actually catch people and are able to present a viable case.
Once again, the juvenile will be charged, we understand, by tomorrow. Officials are telling us tonight that many other charges could be coming soon in the case of the twins. I'm Dan Lothian reporting live in downtown Seattle.
Well, what is the next step in the case itself and in the investigation, Dan?
Well, as far as the twins, they're expected to be arraigned on Friday here at the King County Courthouse. And fire investigators are telling me that as far as the 22 fires so far that they have confessed to, they're looking into several other fires and believe that the number of arsons that were in the south end could climb well beyond 22 by tomorrow.
All right. Dan Lothian live tonight in Seattle. Okay.
Even with a total of 5 suspects in jail now, the arson is far from over in the hardest hit areas, which are North King and South Snohomish counties.
The arson task force is still at work and the residents are still on the alert. Our top story continues now with King 5's Alan Schaffler, live from Linwood tonight. Alan?
Yes, Barry, we're in Linwood, where really this whole string of fires started and where there is certainly no sense among the people we spoke with that it's all over. The people we talked with today said they still feel their community was violated and they still feel vulnerable.
Seeing it not being here takes me back to sensing the loss.
What's missing is Trinity Lutheran Church, torched in the first wave of arsons and damaged so badly the entire complex had to be torn down. Associate Pastor Diane Hastings says there is some hope here now, but no real sense of security.
It's hopeful and depressing at the same time, knowing that the investigation is being successful somewhat, and it's also a little bit frightening still, knowing that there are so many people probably involved in doing this kind of thing.
Well, you know, you just wonder. You know, you don't know for sure what's going on, and you just see how it goes. Maybe the arsons will quit now, and maybe they'll be the same. You don't know.
And that is exactly what members of the arson task force want to hear.
The threat is still out there. We're doing everything we can to minimize that, and we're working in a very, very positive direction. But you've got to keep your guard up still. We've seen lulls in the past, not only in this case, but in other serial arsonist cases, and then they can start up again. So I caution people to remain vigilant.
The price for not staying alert is just too high, and quite evident on this corner in Linwood. Lou Radin also says that the task force has been helped tremendously by a computer system set up by an alcohol, tobacco, and firearms specialist brought in from Washington, D.C. That system has helped them collate all the information and evidence that has come into the task force. Barry, Gene?
Alan, plans yet to rebuild that church?
Plans are underfoot, or rather underway, to rebuild the church. Associate Pastor Diane Hastings says they hope to start next summer, so we look forward to that happening.
All right, Alan Schaffler reporting live in Linwood.
Fire officials are investigating a suspicious fire in Bremerton tonight. Authorities say that the overnight garage fire is the latest in the rash of about 30 suspicious fires in that city in the past 2 months. Most of the fires burned in garages. The others were in businesses, residences, cars, and trucks. The fire marshal says it appears that more than one person is responsible. The bottom line tonight, 2 suspects, twin brothers, charged in South Seattle arsons. They allegedly set the fires just for kicks. And a 16-year-old boy may be charged tomorrow. And while one arson investigation is winding down, another continues. Authorities still have not caught whoever has been setting the fires in North King and South Snohomish counties.
An accidental fire created some tense moments for people at the Country Club apartment complex in Mill Creek early today. This blaze broke out about 3:30. Investigators say this is not a case of arson.
It started in a heating system that is between the ceiling and the roof of the apartment building. Apparently over the years it just broke down and had been smoldering for several hours before it broke through and was noticed.
Luckily, nobody was hurt. Damage in this fire estimated at several $100,000. Damage estimated at $2,500 in a pipe bomb blast at the University of Washington. It happened early this morning near a guard gate at an entrance near 17th and 45th. The explosion ripped through an aluminum wall, but nobody was injured. Police have no suspects or no motive in the case. Incidentally, it's the first UW bombing since the administration and the ROTC buildings were hit in the mid-70s.
Coming up next on King 5 News tonight, closing arguments in the murder trial of a Woodinville man accused of killing his wife with a bench grinder.
Turning up the heat in the presidential race, 6 days to go, and the rhetoric is thick. The latest from the campaign trail in our second half hour.
Plus, in medical news, changing the rules for CPR. Officials now say call 911 first. We'll tell you why.
How will these 3 faces affect the many faces of the Northwest? How will their presidency impact a family without health insurance, a timber worker, a small business owner, an environmentalist, and you? With the election just days away, King 5 News helps you cut through the campaign rhetoric, find out where they stand on important Northwest issues. Tonight on King 5 News at 6:30.
Now showing at Ross. Knits and shirts, the top name brands. Not at department store prices, not even at department store sale prices, but at Ross prices. Yes, Ross has famous maker knits and shirts at a lot less than department store sale prices.
A lot less.
If you're not shopping at Ross, you're paying too much.
A simple change to Philips state-of-the-art light bulbs and remodel your kitchen.
If I didn't care more than words can say, if I didn't care,
remodel your kitchen for about $67. Philips Lighting, opening the world's eyes to light.
I feel really good about the weight loss. It's a big success in my life. I feel about 1.5 inches taller. Nutrisystem really is working on helping people learn how to eat right. You are the one who is in control, and they help you to understand that. I love short skirts. I haven't worn them in 20 years. I am in control of my weight.
Get 50% off program services. Nutrisystem Meals Additional. 50% off. Hurry, offer ends tomorrow.
You're watching King 5 News with Gene Anderson and Barry Judge.
Jury deliberations have now begun in one of King County's most sensational murder trials in recent memory. The trial of Alan Dorenbus, the Woodinville man accused of killing his wife using a bench grinder.
King 5's Brendan McLaughlin is covering this trial. He joins us live tonight from the King County Courthouse with the story. Brendan?
Barry, closing arguments went a little bit late today, so the jury only had about an hour to deliberate. They didn't come up with a verdict. We didn't think they would. But when they come back tomorrow morning at about 9 o'clock to reconvene, they won't have to decide whether Alan Dorenbus killed his wife or not. When he pulled up to the Kenmore police station with his wife's body in the trunk, he confessed. But they do have to decide why. Prosecutor Rebecca Rove waived evidence in front of the jury, trying to destroy the defendant's claim of self-defense. Alan Dorenbus admits he killed his wife, Kathy, in the garage of their Woodinville home, but says he was fending her off as she attacked him with a sledgehammer.
He has himself with a sledge, wielding a sledge around in one hand, holding a grinder in another hand. All of this occurs, this incredible struggle that results in her death, with a defendant who comes out remarkably unscathed.
The defense argued that no one could account for every blow in such a battle. The killing was accidental, not intentional.
He says, I lost my temper. Well, he did. Is there anybody here that hasn't lost their temper at their spouse at some time or another, or their sweetheart? And what the prosecuting attorney is suggesting to you is he lost his temper, therefore he became an intentional murderer.
Though the judge earlier ruled questions of extramarital relations to be inadmissible, the prosecutor suggested Alan Dorenbus's marriage was on the rocks, and he was infatuated with the neighbor, Jody Lenz. She's the first one he called after the killing.
She is the one in whom he confided his intent to separate from his wife. She is the one to whom he related that his wife was this Italian inferno, kind of a variation on the time-honored "my wife doesn't understand me" routine.
So the jury has a lot to think about. In this past week, they heard from the 3 Dorenbus children. They heard from friends and family members of both the victim and the defendant, who spoke so highly of both of them. And they also heard from the defendant himself, Alan Dorenbus, who gave a tearful account of what happened on that night. Reporting live from the King County Courthouse, I'm Brendan McLaughlin, King 5 News.
What are the alternatives for the jury, Brendan? Guilty, not guilty, some other choice?
Well, the charge he faces is second-degree murder, which carries a sentence of 20 years. The jury has been instructed that they are permitted to find him guilty of manslaughter in the first degree, and that is a lesser charge with a lesser sentence. Of course, the defense is looking and hoping for a complete acquittal.
All right, Brendan McLaughlin live in Seattle.
His name is Meatball, and he is implicated in some 29 murders in New Orleans. But to his friends and co-workers here in Seattle, the accused killer is just a hard-working, regular guy. Only now that regular guy could face the death penalty in Louisiana as one of that state's most notorious felons. King 5's Jim Foreman with that story tonight.
Authorities say Gennaro Meatball Arthur has been on the run from the law for 3 years. The U.S. Attorney's Office says at 28, he is a career criminal, a known drug dealer, and suspected murderer. He was collared last night here in Seattle at Canlis, an upscale restaurant on Queen Anne.
We ran a little ruse. We sent 2 of our people in there in work clothes, work belts, like they were rewiring the place. Isolated them over in a corner and grabbed them.
There was no trouble, but marshals were ready. After all, the government accuses Arthur of being the enforcer for a massive drug ring. This is what they say Arthur knows best: guns and violence.
He often carried a weapon, almost always carried large weapons. He also dealt in cocaine, and we believe, and and other illegal drugs, and he was savvy enough to stay a couple of steps ahead of us until last night.
He is one of the most elusive persons we have looked for.
To his friends in Seattle, he wasn't Meatball. He was just a guy named Gerald Arthur. From all accounts, the feds say Arthur's time here in Seattle was trouble-free. He drifted from job to job, finally 7 months ago landing steady work here at Canlis as a dishwasher. The people who run the restaurant were so pleased with his performance, last month they even gave him a bonus. This afternoon, Arthur appeared before a federal magistrate in Seattle. It's the first step to his being returned to New Orleans and standing trial. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. In Seattle, Jim Foreman, King 5 News.
Right now, Arthur is expected to be charged with 5 murders, but the Justice Department says that he could possibly be directly linked to dozens more, and maybe as many as 70.
Here's a look now at news making headlines around Western Washington. Port of Seattle commissioners have given the okay to proceed with plans for a 3rd runway at SeaTac. They've authorized environmental studies that are required before construction can start. Delta Airlines plans to close reservation centers in Seattle. Employees here will be relocated. And a field in Gig Harbor is attracting teenagers who want a mushroom high. Officials warn that mistakenly eating a poisonous mushroom can be fatal.
Coming up next, another cougar sighting in Edmonds. We'll tell you where.
And in our second half hour, we'll tell you why you could soon see a warning label on eggs. Yes, the ones you buy at the grocery store.
Oh, we don't have a warning, perhaps not even advisory, but some snow is moving in.
The snow level is going to be dropping by the weekend. Skiers are getting ready, although perhaps that's a bit premature. It was cold this morning, though, wasn't it? Dropped to 36 in Olympia. We'll tell you what's in our future, but first, a look outside on what is still a rather wet evening. Light rain. We'll tell you what's coming up in just a couple of moments.
I'm Mike James in Puyallup. A federal indictment handed down today claims that Indian smoke shops in this region illegally sold millions of untaxed cigarettes. We'll have the story for you on King 5 News at 6:30.
Christine Gregoire on 110%.
Sometimes my friends say I'm intense. I tell them I never give a half-hearted effort. I've always given 110%, from my first job as a clerk typist to Deputy Attorney General. Intensity. That's what it took to win before the United States Supreme Court and to take on the federal government at Hanford. Taxpayers deserve an Attorney General who will give 110%. Am I intense? You bet.
Christine Gregoire, Democrat for Attorney General.
Major newspapers have overwhelmingly rejected the candidacy of Patty Murray. The spokesman review, Murray isn't qualified. They've endorsed Rod Chandler because unlike Murray, he has depth on the issues. The Journal American, Chandler puts the principles he believes in over politics. The Tri-City Herald, Chandler is rock solid on the most important issues. The Seattle Times, Chandler's inclusive, informed, thoughtful, and prepared for the complicated challenges ahead. Rod Chandler, the best choice.
I'm proud to be Jennifer Dunn's son. She's taught me more about my country than all the history books put together. She says that for Americans, nothing's impossible. When something doesn't work, we fix it. When something goes wrong, we right it. Sure, Congress has let a lot of people down, but we have a chance for a fresh start. And with people like Mom leading the way, I know something good's about to happen.
Let's give Congress a good name. Jennifer Dunn.
In the race for Public Lands Commissioner, the Aberdeen Daily World called Ann Anderson a moderate who is respected on both sides of the aisle. Anderson's opponent is a self-described, outright environmentalist. Ann Anderson will fight to save jobs, protect our environment, and provide money for our schools.
I'm Ann Anderson. With your vote and your help, we can protect our state lands, save jobs, and leave our children a better Washington.
On November 3rd, vote Ann Anderson for Public Lands Commissioner.
Archibald Leach did it. So did Francis Ethel Gump. And now, Pay and Save drugstores are doing it too. We're changing our name to Payless Drugs, which means we'll be a bigger star than ever, with more brand names and more convenient locations. But we won't change your pharmacist, because some names are just too good to change. Sorry, Archie. Payless, the drugstore worth talking about.
Well, this morning, about the time you headed out on the morning commute, it was cold and gray. By about lunchtime, it was cold, it was gray, and it was wet. Still is 51 degrees. Raining at SeaTac, winds out of the southeast at 12 miles per hour. In Tacoma, 52 degrees, winds are calm. Raining there, too. Now, up in Everett, not raining quite as much, but they're still calling it drizzle. 53 degrees and winds out of the southeast at 8 miles per hour. Today's official high at SeaTac, 53. The low this morning, 43, just 0.04 of an inch of rain. Most areas in Puget Sound just received about 100 or 200 of an inch of rain for the most part. Air quality is moderate. And if we take a look elsewhere across the United States, it's been drying off really from the northeast into the southeast. The two major areas of precipitation, well, one is a meandering frontal system that stretches from Wisconsin down into the central plain states and into the Rockies, some areas of snow over upstate Michigan, and some thunder showers from the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle back into New Mexico, rain in Colorado, and that's gradually going to be shifting eastward into the central plains tomorrow. Look for forecast highs tomorrow of 68 in L.A., a rather chilly 41 degrees in Minneapolis-St. Paul, just 45 degrees in Chicago. On the other hand, a rather pleasant 60 degrees in New York City and 84 in Orlando. Taking a look here in the western part of the United States, the jet stream continues to split in two. That really weakened this one system. That's why we only saw a few hundredths of an inch of rain. But there's a second one out here. If we go in for a little bit closer look, we'll notice that as this first system is just crossing western Washington right now, the second is rapidly approaching. It's going to be bringing us much more rain and also some windy conditions. The reason for that is that the split is beginning to close and the split portion is moving toward the east. We won't get the full brunt of that system, but we'll get quite a bit, and it all adds up to wet. Here's a look at our forecast for tonight then. Low temperatures are not going to be as cool as they were last night. They're going to range in the low to mid-40s for the most part. Occasional light rain, gradually increasing clouds after perhaps some brief partial clearing. Then tomorrow is going to be rainy and windy, high temperatures low to mid-50s. If you're headed east to the Cascades, rain probably won't hit places like Wenatchee and Yakima until between 9 in the morning to about noon, and not until the mid to late afternoon around Spokane. Now, winds tonight, small craft advisories already posted in the east entrance to the strait, Admiralty Inlet, and north of Camino Island. Winds up to 30 knots in Admiralty Inlet, and gusty, as they will be really throughout the Puget Sound area. Tomorrow, gale force winds along the coast. Small craft advisories in the strait, especially near the east and west entrances, Admiralty Inlet and north of Camino Islands, and still gusty all over the place. Up in the mountains, rainy and windy. The snow level dropping to as low as 5,500 feet. Afternoon past temperatures 40 to 47 degrees. Strong easterly winds. And then Friday, some showers, perhaps some partial clearing, a high of 53 degrees. Saturday, increasing rain. Yep, just in time for trick-or-treat, 55 degrees. Sunday, showers, some partial clearing. And then Monday, showers, partial clearing. Very partial, I'd have to add. And high temperatures in the mid-50s. As much as a dad who's going out trick-or-treating, I'd love to see it sunny and dry on Saturday. Doesn't look that way.
After a year-long drought, you remember how much we wanted this at some point, and here it is.
And here it is.
But now? Jeff, thanks. A King 5 follow-up now on a story we first reported yesterday. Sightings of a wild cougar in Edmonds continue to be called into police there. The latest glimpse of this big cat came last night, about 7 o'clock, when the police officers spotted the cougar near State Route 104 and Pine Street. The dogs brought in to track the cougar could not pick up the trail. However, wildlife agents caution until the cougar is caught or moves on to new ground, do not try to approach it if you see it. Simply call 911.
Tonight on King 5 News at 6:30, it's not the rough play on the ice, but among the fans that has a Seattle Thunderbird organization in trouble. Could an injury to a fan put beer sales at hockey games in jeopardy? That story only on King 5 News at 6:30.
And coming up later in this broadcast, on the trail of Smokey Bear, a missing costume worth $2,000 turns up in western Washington.
She won the hearts of the world in 1976, but returned to a world of fear. Hi, I'm Brian Tracy.
And I'm Penny Legate with Evening Magazine. Tonight, find out how Nadia Comaneci escaped a world of terror and found true happiness with Bart Connor.
That's tonight at 7 o'clock on Evening Magazine.
When Mary Tovani cooks Sunday dinner, nobody does it better. Everybody is welcome. It is a tradition Safeway is proud to be a part of. What we do best at Safeway is provide Mary with the low prices she needs and the quality she wants. Because we believe what happens here and around tables everywhere is very important indeed.
Nobody does it better.
The eyes of America, all beautiful to us, which is why Pearl Vision is now offering 50% off on a great selection of designer frames. Bill Blass, Liz Claiborne, Gant, Cheryl Teague, Stetson, and more, all at 50% off. Just one more way we keep America seeing beautifully. Come by during 50% off designer days at America's #1 eye care specialist. Because no one cares for your eyes more than Pearl.
Every customer deserves special treatment.
This week, save on 24 exposure 35mm color print film. 100 speed, $2.99. 200 speed, $3.59. 400 speed, just $3.99. Get 25% savings on Max Factor Cosmetics, lipsticks, eyeshadows, mascaras, and more. 25% off this week.
Bartels, trusted since 1890.
Pierce County wants to snuff out smoking in workplaces and public buildings. County officials are debating a new ordinance that would ban smoking in almost all buildings except bars.
King 5's Julie Francavilla joins us live from Tacoma tonight with a look at the reasons behind this controversial proposal. Julie?
Barry, Jean, some say this fight is all about health. Others say the government is trying to go too far here in Pierce County, but everyone agrees that it's a burning issue. Welcome to Wow's Restaurant and Lounge in Tacoma. These people say they come here to drink and talk and smoke, and they don't want the county council to change that.
They're not going to stop me. No. No, they can put me in jail. They can do anything they want to do. I don't care.
The county ordinance would force taverns like this to make at least 30% of their seating into a non-smoking area. This tavern's owner says that would simply put her out of business.
I don't think that there are enough non-smokers in the working class, which is what we cater to, is the blue-collar worker. And that's where most of the smokers are. I don't think my business would survive.
But Pierce County Council member Dennis Flanagan says the main issue here is health.
Nobody wants to cause somebody to go out of business. On the other hand, nobody wants to cause somebody to have lung cancer. And given the choices, we're between two public goods.
That's why the county council heard testimony today from the community. Some backers of the ordinance say they shouldn't have to breathe secondhand smoke while they're working.
I enjoy my job as a waitress, and I do not believe that I should be forced to give it up simply because a small majority chooses to pollute the air I breathe.
A number of people spoke about the problems associated with secondhand smoke. They're hoping that Pierce County will take the lead and ban smoking in places like taverns. I'm Julie Francavilla reporting live in Tacoma.
Julie, when should we expect a decision on this proposal?
Well, Barry, at that meeting today, there were so many people that they didn't even have time to hear testimony from everyone who wanted to talk. So they planned another meeting for December 9th. Then eventually the county council will make the final decision. So the answer is it could be a while.
All right, Julie Francavilla live tonight in Tacoma.
Coming up next on King 5 News, trouble over term limits, a controversial initiative to kick veteran politicians out of office. It's being fought in the courts. We'll tell you why.
Also, a controversial new presidential poll says the race is closer than ever before.
The Mariners have a new manager. Is it a manager a trois that involves both the Griffeys and Lou Piniella?
I think 3 or 4 people are going to do it. No, no decision yet. Lou Piniella apparently in town talking about that today, but no decision coming forth yet. Doug Christie spoke to his old schoolmates at his old school about drugs and alcohol and indicated he may not even play with the Sonics this year. Might just go back to school.
Back to school?
Yep.
All right, see you in a minute.
Okay. Those stories and more as King 5 News continues tonight from Bonnie Lake, Black Diamond, and your part of Western Washington.
Would you set yourself on fire to make it in Hollywood? These women do. They also jump out of airplanes on a bicycle and enjoy beating up men. Next time on Entertainment Tonight, you'll get the inside story on Hollywood's sexy stunt women. They're the baddest and best in the business, and they love what they do.
It feeds my soul kind of thing. I really love doing stunt work.
Plus, she's one of the sexiest sirens on the screen, and you'll see Uma Thurman's new erotic thriller on Entertainment Tonight.
Tonight at 7:30 on King 5.
It's a simple fact of nature that this tree will take 50 years to mature. So to ensure that Weyerhaeuser always has trees, we only harvest about 2% of our forest land a year, which means close to 98% of Weyerhaeuser forest land is always growing trees. Some 1 year old, some 10, some 50 and ready for harvest.
which is a long way of saying that Weyerhaeuser will have trees forever. Weyerhaeuser, the tree-growing company.
Now there are 2 tasty ways to save at Dairy Queen. This great big juicy burger, bursting with a taste of home, is just 99 cents at Dairy Queen. Or launch into a delicious shake in a multitude of flavors for just 99 cents. The burger or shake sale, each just 99 cents. We give you taste, we give you value, we treat you right. Dairy Queen.
Regis Philbin here with Donna Hutchinson. Lost 53 pounds in 7 months. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What is the key to it?
The people that worked at the Jenny Craig centers were just behind me 100%. I'm going into 10 months with keeping my weight off, and I couldn't have done it without Jenny Craig.
You heard her story. What about yours? Why don't you call Jenny right now?
Call us right now and lose all the weight you want for just $1 a pound. Just $1 a pound to lose all you want. Pick up the phone and dial 1-800-68-JENNY.
You're watching King 5 News with Gene Anderson and Barry Judge. Western Washington's #1 5 o'clock news.
Hello again and welcome back. In an unusual move, a judge has ordered a political radio ad off the air.
This ad urges voters to reject term limits for politicians. But according to the judge, the way the ad makes its point could violate state laws against false political advertising. King 5's Robert Mack has more on the ad and the heated battle about term limits.
Next week, Washington voters will once again be asked whether there should be limits on the number of terms politicians can serve. Initiative 573 would limit U.S. senators to 12 years and U.S. representatives to 6 years in office. It would also put limits on state legislators and the governor. Now, term limit opponents who want you to vote no have been brought to court over their radio ad. In that ad, the Vote No campaign says term limits would force out Washington politicians who have a lot of clout on Capitol Hill. And the ad claims it's a ploy by special interest groups.
They still want oil drilling off our shores and super tankers in Puget Sound. They still want to give away our water and our jobs to other states.
But those who support term limits have gone to court, telling a Pierce County judge that the ad is false. That supporting term limits does not mean they support oil drilling or super tankers in Puget Sound.
It's wrong. It is false, and it is an absolute lie.
A Pierce County judge has now issued a restraining order telling term limit opponents they can't air the ad because it could do irreparable harm to the initiative and that it could be false political advertising.
I'll fax you the restraining order.
Term limit supporters today said it's a victory and are calling radio stations making sure the ads are pulled. But term limit opponents insist their claim is true, that special interests want veteran lawmakers out.
They want to limit voters' choice on who they can vote for in the voting booth, and now they want to limit voters' ability to hear both sides of the argument.
The Vote No campaign is appealing that restraining order, but with the election just days away, their plan for a last-minute advertising blitz is running out of time. In Tacoma, Robert Mack, King 5 News.
The Pierce County judge has set a hearing date on the ad for Friday. Term limit opponents hope a court of appeals will take emergency action tomorrow to put their ad back on the airwaves.
The candidates for District 1 legislative positions held what they call a campaign timeout to address racial hate mail that has circulated during the course of the campaign. They called a nonpartisan news conference to say it doesn't matter who sent out the literature and that such action will not be tolerated. The racial mailings were directed toward District 1 candidate Walter Baxter.
The people of the 1st District come united to say that we're not going to stand for things like this, that we are bigger than this, that the state legislative race is about the issues of the 1st District and how it affects the people of the 1st District. And I'm heartened that we've come together and united as one.
Bothell Mayor Paul Cowles encouraged all people, regardless of race, color, or creed, who want to serve the 1st District to become a candidate. A clarification now to a story that aired on King 5 Morning News today. The Immunex company says no one from the Ken Eikenberry campaign for governor approached the company asking for a campaign contribution in return for a visit by the Republican candidate. In a written statement to Eikenberry today, Immunex called the story, which ran in the Seattle PI and on the Newswires, quote, completely untrue. King 5 regrets any inconvenience the story may have caused.
In presidential politics tonight, George Bush wanted the attack against Bill Clinton and Al Gore, who he now calls the Ozone Man. At a rally in Ohio today, Bush urged supporters to get out and vote next Tuesday.
We got to tell them that America is not in decline, that we are on the move. I want to finish the job. I ask for your support. I ask for your trust. We are going to win this election, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bush is also campaigning in Michigan today, trying to bolster support in those electoral high states. Bush is being buoyed by some new poll results. A CNN USA Today poll released today shows a much tighter race. The survey puts the president within 2 points of Bill Clinton, and independent Ross Perot still far behind. The poll has a margin of error of ±3. There have been some questions about the validity of this particular poll. The Gallup organization that conducted the poll projects a 55% turnout, but the Clinton camp says that's low for this election because young voters are more interested in politics this year.
As for Governor Bill Clinton, today he continued his southern swing through Mississippi, trying to gain support of conservatives. Clinton told hundreds of people at a rally today in Jackson he's done everything he can to broaden the base of the party and pointed to what he called Bush rhetoric.
And you remember what he said last time? Reading my lips, 15 million new jobs, you'll be better off. Reminds me of what my mama used to tell me when I was a boy. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We're not going to buy it this time.
Clinton also says that he wants independent candidate Ross Perot involved in his administration if he wins the White House. Clinton's running mate Al Gore wrapped up his visit to Colorado today. He was in Denver and then moved on to New Mexico and West Texas. The vice presidential candidate was forced to cancel an appearance last night at a Colorado high school in Fort Collins when a bomb was found in a gymnasium where he was scheduled to speak. No one was injured. The Secret Service says the explosive device was very crude, but was capable of hurting somebody.
Independent candidate Ross Perot was on the road today, taking his campaign to Denver tonight. Earlier today, a spokesman for his campaign answered questions about a report Perot tried to have the Dallas Police Department run a sting operation against a Republican leader.
The reports of investigating bank accounts and all this business, as far as I know, is absolutely false. If he did everything that you all are saying that he does, I don't know how he'd have time to run any businesses.
Perot recently accused the Bush campaign of trying to smear his daughter, disrupt her marriage, and attempt to wiretap his office. The Bush campaign called the accusations ludicrous. The FBI is going to open the remaining records about the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the records that are still confidential. The Bureau must comply with the law signed yesterday by President Bush, which requires disclosure of documents relating to the assassination. The president will appoint a 5-member Citizens Commission to review the documents officials want to keep secret.
Tony Ventrella next with sports tonight. Lou Piniella spends his day pondering his future with the Mariners.
And unsigned Sonics top draft pick Doug Christie prepares to sit out the season.
Supreme Court Justice. You want to elect only the best. And that's why judges across Washington are choosing Elaine Houghton, selected as one of the best lawyers in America, first woman named Trial Lawyer of the Year, endorsed by police and firefighters, and by the Women's Political Caucus. Join a majority of Superior Court judges in King, Pierce, and Spokane counties, and other judges across the state by voting for Elaine Houghton for Supreme Court.
Campaign reform. It's a complex issue. Take Initiative 134. The big oil companies and Philip Morris, the tobacco giant, and other special interests paid tens of thousands of dollars to put 134 on the ballot. Why? Do you trust Philip Morris and Union Oil of California to clean up our government? Do you think their plans for our state match yours? Citizens from across the state urge you to vote no on 134 because it's not real reform.
In his latest negative TV ad, Ken Eikenberry asks, "What do you think?" I'd like to answer. I think he's distorting Mike Lowry's position on taxes and is taking his words out of context. Mike has given us straight talk about our fiscal problems. I agree with former Governor Dan Evans that Ken Eikenberry should be specific and quit trying to mislead Washington's voters. What do I think, Ken? I think he should stop the negative ads and get back to the real issues of health care, education, and the economy. That would be good for our state.
You'll find your commute this morning mostly pleasant. Traffic is jammed for miles. Both north and southbound lanes are clogged.
You want to be near the water. You want it to be different. You know, you could take a cruise. I know a ship. You'll have the time of your life.
There are over 100 cruise ships sailing the 7 seas, each a different experience. How will you know when your ship comes in? Uniglobe, 1-800-999-8000.
Drop into a Dodge dealer now and you can get a Ram 150 pickup with over $2,600 in package savings, plus $1,500 cash back. Or get a Cummins diesel and get $500 cash back. $500. That's something Dodge hardly ever drops on diesel pickups. It's the National Dodge Truck Sale.
Climb aboard now at your Northwest Dodge dealer.
Tonight on NBC Nightly News, the latest in this tightening presidential race. Also, we'll be examining Ross Perot's television ads to see how truthful they are, and a report on an Alzheimer's drug that may do more harm than good. Tonight, here on NBC Nightly News.
It could happen at any minute. The Mariners getting a new manager.
You buy this? Is it Lou Piniella?
It could happen at any minute. It could happen any day.
It could happen not at all?
It could happen any week.
What'll happen?
What can I say? Boy, is this up in the air. At this hour, Lou Piniella is sequestered somewhere with General Manager Woody Woodward, where the two are meeting to discuss the Mariners' managerial opening. Now, last night it appeared a deal was imminent, but sources today say that an announcement is not forthcoming in the near future, like 24 hours. Piniella is a former teammate of Woodward, but Piniella is most interested in managing the Giants should they move to Florida. Right now, the Mariners are trying to convince Piniella that Seattle is the place for him. Officially, the Mariners refuse to confirm or deny that Piniella is even in town. Just the kind of public relations a last-place team needs, don't you think? To build up that fan interest? One other baseball note, Jim Leyland of the Pittsburgh Pirates has been named Manager of the Year in the National League, and why not? He deserved it. The Pirates have been in that championship so many times in the last few years. Basketball, the Sonics play Denver in Saskatchewan tonight. The exhibition season ends on Friday. The question is, will Doug Christie be a part of things then? Doug was held out all of training camp, or has held out. The Sonics offer he calls insulting, and for now anyway, he's spending some quality time in the community in which he was raised. This morning, Doug returned to his alma mater, Rainier Beach High School, where he asked kids to sign a contract pledging to keep off drugs and alcohol. While he's glad to be part of such a worthy program, Doug expected to be playing basketball at this time of the year, but the stalled negotiations have taken their toll.
Well, basically, an offer really has never been made, and if one has been made, it was very, very unacceptable. Right now, I'm at the point where I could be going back to school. I talked to my mother today, and she kind of gave me a lot of support in the sense that if I felt that I wanted to go back to school, she really wants me to get my education to go back and try to complete that. But in a sense, leave the door open for a little while and see if we can get something done, but it's not going to be open too long. They haven't made an offer really that's acceptable to me or my agent, and right now we're kind of at an impasse, and there's not really much more to say than that. It's very frustrating in the sense I think I can go in and I can contribute to the team and I can contribute to the NBA outside of the NBA, but I'm just dealing with it pretty good, actually.
In any case, both Sonics and Christie would be better off getting this thing settled and getting on with the NBA season. College football, 3 days and counting till the Huskies showdown with Stanford Saturday. Despite being favored by 12 points, the Dogs know that this game could be tough. They're not taking it lightly. The Cardinal proved that against Notre Dame in South Bend when they upset the Irish. And there's Coach Bill Walsh, a man who owns 3 Super Bowl rings and who has been called by many a football genius. But the Huskies and many others believe that has far less impact than people think.
Well, I think he's a great coach, but, we're not, Bill Walsh isn't putting a helmet on this week, and I don't want to take anything away from Coach Walsh. I mean, he's very proven, and he's been very successful, and he's going to have a great plan for us, there's no doubt.
Well, if it were up to me and Bill would probably win with the condition I'm in. So, but fortunately, neither one of us have to play.
He makes an excellent point. Another big game in Pullman this weekend. The Cougs try to raise that record to 7-1. They face the Oregon Ducks Saturday as they try to rebound from last week's disappointing loss at USC. The most frustrating part about last week's performance was the fact that the Cougs did themselves in with mistakes. Mike Price's job this week is to keep his club focused on what's ahead.
Well, I don't think you can dwell on the past. I think you just have to present this game to our players, correct the mistakes that we made, and get on with it. If anything, use the frustration and the anger that we all feel and keep that inside of us and take it out on the Ducks.
Look for a high-scoring effort by the Cougars this week against Oregon. Pro Ball, Seahawks have a bye before hosting the Redskins a week from Sunday. But good news for former Hawk Jacob Green. He's been picked up already, and by the 49ers. Jacob was cut by the Hawks, as you recall, on Monday after a great 13-year pro career here. The Niners need a fill-in for starter Kevin Fagan, a defensive end. Jacob seems to fill the bill. Maybe he'll get a shot at the all-elusive Super Bowl now that he's with an actual contender in the NFL. Hockey tonight at the arena, the T-Birds against the Victoria Cougars. Highlights at 11 o'clock tonight. Strangest hockey play of the year in New York last night. The Islanders hosting the Kings. Vladimir Malakov of the Islanders wedges his stick in the boards. Did you forget something, pal? Well, anyway, without his stick, he went on and tried to play. Islanders losing the game 4-3. The stick was removed and reunited with its owner. Has a happy ending. Next hour, we'll take a look at gold medalist Shannon Miller, who's in town for a gymnastics exhibition. That's coming up at 6:30 on King 5 News.
Prediction for Christy? School? Basketball?
Boy, I tell you, this is a tough one to pick. And as you know, I'm not reluctant to make picks. Right now, he's threatening to go back to school. The Sonics say, fine, let him go back. They have Gerald Patio, who can play his position. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm speechless.
It's a first.
Oh, we'll say something then.
Tony, thanks. Up next, a warning label on eggs. It could become a reality, and we'll tell you why.
And we'll also tell you why health officials are changing the rules when it comes to CPR.
If you see news happen or shoot home video of a breaking news story, call 1-800-45-NEWS-5. That's 1-800-456-3975. Cellular One users can make a free call, star TV 5. That's star 885. And you can shoot for the home team.
In the race for Congress in the new 9th District, one candidate stands out for his integrity, Mike Kreidler. Dr. Mike Kreidler cares for clinical optometry patients at Group Health. State Senator Mike Kreidler championed health care reform and initiated the cleanup of Puget Sound. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Kreidler served his country proudly at Madigan Army Hospital during Operation Desert Storm. And with your vote, Congressman Mike Kreidler will continue his fight for health care reform, jobs, and the environment. Mike Kreidler, integrity and leadership for a new Congress.
During my 28 years as an educator, I've seen the power of public schools to motivate and prepare young people. But the world is changing rapidly, and the education system isn't keeping up. I'm Terry Bergeson. I believe in our children, and I'm not satisfied with the status quo. I'm running for superintendent of public instruction to reform the education system so that all of our children can meet the challenges of the 21st century.
For too many in our country, health care is out of reach. No insurance, no hope of paying the bills. Jack Metcalf doesn't support universal health care reform. In the state Senate, he voted against providing health care for those without insurance. And now he's running for Congress opposing universal health care. Jack Metcalf, maybe he'd feel a little different if he wasn't a politician who got free health insurance from the state.
Seattle PI. Rod Chandler's ads distorting Patty Murray's record are being ridiculed by the press. The Seattle Post-Intelligencer says, we wish to make strong objection to a misleading political ad attack by Republican U.S. Senate candidate Rod Chandler. The Seattle Times analyzed the ads and says, the truth is that on every claim, Chandler either distorts the facts or leaves out telling details about his own plans. Patty Murray for U.S. Senate, a voice for real change. Finally.
These are tough times for middle-class families. After 12 years of Republican neglect and trickle-down economics, we're having a tough time making ends meet. Working harder for less money, spending less time with our children, paying more for health care and education. The Republicans in Washington cut taxes for the rich, raised taxes on the middle class, tried to cut college aid for middle-class kids, and as health care costs tripled, they did nothing. Enough is enough. It's time for a change. The New Democrats fighting for a better future for hard-working families.
In health news tonight, German researchers working in Thailand have encouraging news about an AIDS drug they're testing. The drug, called WF10, has been tested for about a year on more than 70 AIDS patients. Doctors call the drug a breakthrough in AIDS therapy because they claim it stops the spread of AIDS in a person's body by preventing the virus from infecting new cells. Now, it's reported the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is looking into WF10. Also on the AIDS front tonight, the Centers for Disease Control is proposing to expand its definition of AIDS. King 5's Linda Byron explains what the new definition is and what it could mean to thousands of Americans.
We just took some blood tests and
the new criteria comes after a wave of protests from women who complained that the medical definition of AIDS focused on ailments found primarily in gay men.
The three new diseases, cervical cancer, recurrent bacterial pneumonia, pulmonary tuberculosis, and the change in the CD4 count inclusion will, I think, make it much more likely that women will be included equally with men.
Is there any soreness around here at all? To be classified as having AIDS, a person must test positive for the HIV virus and have one of 26 medical conditions.
We need the new definition to have a better understanding of the disease, and I think to make the case politically to the legislators that this disease is not going away, that, as a matter of fact, a lot of people are sick, and that we need additional resources.
Right now, the Centers for Disease Control estimate 1 million Americans have tested positive for the HIV virus. Under the new definition, the number of AIDS cases reported next year could nearly double, from 50,000 cases nationwide to nearly 90,000. A word of caution here. The expanded definition means the number of AIDS cases will jump, not only nationally, but here in King County. Health officials say it is not cause for alarm. In fact, it can be very beneficial if it means increased public attention and increased funding for AIDS. In Seattle, Linda Byron, King 5 News.
The new definition is expected to take effect in January. It should make it easier for some people to get access to medical treatment for AIDS.
The Red Cross is changing its guidelines for people administering CPR. In the past, health officials recommended starting CPR first, then calling for help, so the patient's heartbeat could be stabilized with a defibrillator. Now they say call for help first.
The change is going to save more lives, we believe. And this is a result of many studies that we've looked at over the years.
Officials say the changes are for adults only. For children, they say, they still recommend starting CPR first and then calling for help. A warning tonight for egg lovers. You may soon see warning labels on the cartons. The Agriculture Department wants to put a message on egg crates advising consumers to refrigerate the eggs before cooking them. It also wants to establish regulations to make sure eggs are transported to stores in properly refrigerated trucks. The proposals are designed to stop food poisoning that's caused by salmonella bacteria.
Jeff Renner with the 5-day forecast coming right up.
And we're going to tell you when masks are not used to frighten but to educate. A special project by a Northwest artist.
Tonight, an all-new Seinfeld's giving lessons in pillow talk.
She starts with the dirty talking.
Okay, what did you say?
How could you say something like that to me?
I was just trying to keep up.
Then how well does a newlywed husband know his wife?
You're in public relations?
Which means I do what?
It means you relate. Publicly.
All new Seinfeld and Mad About You tonight. And spend an intimate evening with Michael Bolton. An exclusive NBC television event coming tonight.
It's a special place. It's where you live. And when you want to make it better, we're ready to help. At Rent-A-Center, you don't need a lot of cash or any deposit. We give you credit for who you are, and we have just what you're looking for. Right now, you can rent to own this Klausner sofa and love seat, just $14.99 a week. Every rental includes free delivery and free service. Remember, when you're ready to make your life better, nobody brings it home like Rent-A-Center.
Sir, this is one of the few businesses that doesn't advertise in the GTE everything pages. Why is that?
Well, this is Tommy's Toys. I'm Tommy.
And these are my toys. And that's my toy, too. And that's mine, and that's mine. Now, if I advertised in that book, there'd be lots of people in here wanting to touch my toys. Maybe even take my toys, but they can't. They're my toys.
Businesses that want to be successful advertise in the GTE everything pages. Those that don't.
Bally's is offering our pay-as-you-go program at the lowest enrollment fee of the year, $49. Once you join, you'll pay only $18 a month for as long as you want. No outrageous membership fees, no long-term commitments, just $18 a month for aerobics, swimming, jogging, and the most advanced equipment available, including our 30-minute workout. Join Bally's Pacific West Health Club's pay-as-you-go program now. An offer like this won't last forever. Call 1-800-WORKOUT.
To inform.
They fought with honors for our country. So why are they hearing this?
Tearing down the American family. To explain. I am a lesbian.
What will be next? Pedophiles? Gays in the military. Good for the service or bad for the nation?
To enlighten.
It's the next Our Times. Friday night at 10 on King 5.
Your driving may soon be affected by the weather if you're at the higher elevations.
Even at the lower elevations, There's going to be rain tomorrow, and that'll make for a slick morning commute. But if you're headed up to the North Cascades Highway, possibly snow this weekend. Here's our forecast for tonight, though. Low temperatures in the low to mid-40s. Occasional light rain, maybe a few areas of partial clearing, but then increasing clouds. And tomorrow, rainy and windy, a high of 55. Friday, look for rain changing to showers, a high of 53, some areas of partial clearing. Saturday, increasing rain and a little bit breezy, a high of 55. Sunday, showers, some partial clearing. Monday, some partial clearing and a high of 56. But on Friday, I would say the snow level could drop as low as maybe 4,500 to 4,000 feet. Saturday down to about 3,500 feet. They'll be picking up some snow above those elevations. Could be problems and also some benefits for hunters. Driving could be tricky.
Well, we're used to the rain, but the snow.
Get their skis ready.
Thanks. A King 5 follow-up now on the missing Smokey Bear costume. The costume that looks like this one has been found. The $2,000 bear suit bounced off a truck near Sumner back in September and wasn't seen again. This morning, a man from Tacoma called the Department of Natural Resources officials and told them where they could come and pick it up. Officials say the man claimed that he didn't know who the suit belonged to and was even planning to wear it this Halloween. I guess now he's looking for another costume because his closet is bare.
Tonight on King 5 News at 6:30, it is not only the players who get into fights at the hockey games. See how the Seattle Thunderbirds are being sued for fans in fisticuffs. Also indictments today for 24 people accused of operating an illegal cigarette sales operation. May have cost our state millions in tax revenue. Then at 11, most mushrooms are legal, but these mushrooms are not. How kids in Gig Harbor are pushing their luck in a local field.
This week, you're likely to see a lot of masks around, probably the usual assortment of ghosts and goblins and maybe a few political candidates thrown in. But not all of the masks are scary, and some are even educational. Carl Click explains tonight that for one Oregon woman, they are an art form.
The faces are familiar. They are also plaster. Presidents, musicians, leaders. They are the creations of this woman, artist Willa Shallot. She looks like this when she's not a life cast.
And it's made by applying a material to someone's face, allowing it to set and taking it off, and then pouring plaster in that mold. So what I have is an exact reproduction of the person's face.
And she's reproduced some pretty famous faces. But there's more to all this than exhibits and demonstrations and book tours.
That is cool.
While it's interesting for us all, hers is an art for the visually impaired, for they see with their hands. Listen to Jerry Deloney's trip through faces he's never seen before.
Dizzy Gillespie, I wonder how you ever got that. That is just an amazing expression on Dizzy Gillespie's face. It looks like he's just getting ready to blow a horn. Paul Newman. Or Muhammad Ali, the Dalai Lama. Well, he looks kind of like a religious leader. You know, the rounded head and the very wise look. Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, look at her cheeks and stuff. I mean, and look at the smile on her face. I mean, she seems like she's just a happy person. You know, you almost feel like you've met her.
Yes, because of this woman's work, this blind man and others like him are touched by a new part of our world.
Look at the nose on that guy. I mean, you know, who else but our president would have a nose like that? Maybe he'll win by a nose or something.
Carl Click, King 5 News.
That is truly a work of art.
What a great idea.
Great idea.
That's our news tonight at 5. Thanks for being part of it, and hope you can join us again tomorrow.
NBC Nightly News is next. A look at the controversy over a new Alzheimer's drug. And then join us again for King 5 News at 6:30, when we'll talk more about the president's positions on issues important to us here in the Northwest. See you at 6:30.
Good night.
Day in and day out, more people get their news from King 5 than any other television station in the Northwest.
Bush or Clinton, a week from today we'll know, and the race is getting tight. A new report on a popular drug for Alzheimer's, a drug with major flaws, it turns out. And America Close Up tonight, women in combat. Is the issue getting a fair hearing?
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. Numbers, numbers, numbers. Only 5 full days of campaigning left. Polls showing a spread now of only 2 to 7 points. Bush and Clinton concentrating on a handful of states with a total of 111 electoral votes, 270 required to win. These are the latest national polls of likely voters. NBC and ABC showing a 7-point Clinton lead. CNN late today narrowed that race to 2 points. Perot is staying in the 15 to 20-point range. NBC's John Cochran is with the president tonight. And John, today the Treasury Department said the federal deficit had a record last year, but the president has other numbers that he'd much rather talk about, I gather.
That's right. The president woke up this morning determined to make the most of that new uptick in national productivity.